When I'm looking at a stock that I want to buy, I'm looking at long-term consistent growth. I'm looking at gross margin expansion. I'm looking at net margin expansion. And then of course, no investment decision is final until I take a deep look at the balance sheet. Using that short checklist has helped me find many great companies over the years, including the one I'm talking about today, the small cap stock that I believe is one of the best values for money in the entire stock market. If you've been subscribed to the channel for a while now, you might know what stock I'm talking about, but I would bet the high majority of people that are watching this video have never heard of this stock before, so I'm excited to put this one on your radar. But first, real quick, if you're not subscribed, become one of those 5,800 or so people. We'd love to have you here on the channel. It's nice to be back on YouTube, back uploading videos after I took a little bit of a break. What I didn't take a break from was the Patreon. So if you want to support the channel, get exclusive content, go ahead and join the other 70 or so members we have in the Patreon there. That's the first place I post any potential opportunities I see in the market, any buy orders I make, any sell orders I make, etc. So consider joining us there. We'd love to have you. All right, let's jump into the video. The small cap stock that we're talking about here today is Vital Farms, and this is ticker VITL. This is a $42.67 stock as of recording this video. Year to date, over the past 15 days, we're up about 10%, and in the past 1 year, the stock is up 180%. The first thing I really like about Vital Farms is that the business model is extremely easy to understand. It's very important to understand the business model of a stock that you're trying to buy, and Vital Farms is very easy. They sell butter and they sell eggs from ethically raised animals. That's it. That's the entire business model of Vital Farms. Very easy to understand, and I love that about them. It doesn't always have to be some very complicated tech stock or software stock or biomedical technology stock or something like that in order to get a great return. Like I said earlier, we're up over 180% on our shares in the last 1 year. There's tons of tech stocks out there that didn't have nearly as good of a year as Vital Farms had last year. And the main reason for Vital Farms getting a lot of respect from the market and going up so much over the past 1 year is the amazing financials that they have. The crazy numbers that they put up on a quarterly basis every single quarter, quarter in and quarter out. Check out the last quarter they reported, Q3 of 2024. Revenue was up 31% year over year. Net income was up more than double the revenue at 64% year over year. Diluted EPS was up 60% year over year. Net profit margin was up 25% year over year. Operating income, huge deal, was up 76% year over year. And they're doing all of that while having one of the best balance sheets for a small cap company I've ever seen. Cash equivalents, and marketable securities were $163 million at the end of Q3, and Vital Farms has no outstanding debt whatsoever at all. So if we're talking about safety and being able to weather any financial storm, that if business goes bad, there's a 0% chance that they go bankrupt. You can't go bankrupt if you have no debt. And a couple days ago, Vital Farms just put out a press release where they're talking about they expect very strong growth in 2025. They gave a little bit of a recap of 2024, but then they talked a lot about what's going to happen in 2025 and beyond. We're going to talk about that here in a second, but first, I think it's important to look at the valuation metrics before we talk about any future growth. So what I want to do is I want to look at the GAAP PE ratio on a trailing basis, GAAP PE on a forward basis, and then the PEG ratio. The stock is trading at 37 times trailing earnings and 37 times forward earnings. That's considerably higher than the average S&P 500 stock that's trading at about 21.6 times earnings right now. We can decide if that's way overvalued when we take the growth rates into account. So we'll check that out here in a second. But first, let's look at the PEG ratio. This is the first indicator that the growth is much stronger for Vital Farms than it would be for, let's say, the average S&P 500 stock. The PEG ratio for Vital Farms is 0.25. Just so everyone knows, a good PEG ratio is something below 1. Below 1 is considered to be undervalued, so like a 0.9 or a 0.8, much less extremely low, like 0.5, like Vital Farms is boasting right now. Very impressive. So that lets us know that the current price is not taking into account future earnings growth. And just to illustrate how much of a deal this is, the average stock inside the S&P 500 trades at a 1.2 PEG ratio, considerably higher than Vital Farms at a 0.25 and higher than what we would consider to be undervalued below a 1. Now, in order to decide if that PE ratio is really an issue, we got to check out the growth rates. So revenue growth on a year-over-year basis was 29.14%. Forward revenue growth is expected to be 25%. The sector median for revenue growth last year was 1.62%. And the sector median for upcoming 2025 is expected to be about 2%. So Vital Farms is absolutely blowing away almost every food and drink company out there that's publicly traded on the market. They've got EBITDA growth of 91% on a year-over-year basis and 80% on a forward basis expected. They've got EPS growth of 151% with 212% expected in the next 12 months. And lastly, their operating cash flow growth on a year-over-year basis was 228%. These numbers are absolutely ridiculous. When you have expected 212% EPS growth in comparison to 25% expected revenue growth over the next 12 months, looking out on a forward basis, that stock is a screaming buy. A stock like that can command a PE of somewhere between 45 and 60. And dependent upon what sector they're playing in, considerably way higher than that. Something like a software company could command as high as 80 to 100 PE when you look at those type of numbers. But we're talking about a food and drink company, so that valuation is going to be harder to push than it would be for something like a tech company or a software company. So in my opinion, as you can tell based on my commentary so far, assuming you're going to hold this stock for the next 3 to 5 to 7 years, the stock is absolutely a buy at 42. It would be ideal to get it lower than 42. Somewhere in the 30s would be really attractive to pick up new shares. The lowest possibility for what I think could happen, assuming we have a market downturn sometime within Q1, is I could see mid to low 30s again for Vital Farms. But the amount of great things they have going for them, I think the odds of it being down there and staying down there and definitely going any lower than that are extremely slim. If you're considering buying Vital Farms, just like with any stock, it's a really good idea to buy over a few months span. So maybe over the next 3 months, you buy every single week over that time so that you can take advantage of any potential dips along the way. You wouldn't want to buy all your shares at 42 if 2 weeks later the stock is at 38. That would be unfortunate. You would feel like you missed out. It's better to spread your purchases over a few months span. Stocks move up and down all the time, and most of the time short-term moves are not about fundamentals, they're about sentiment. So if the sentiment turns south, any stock out there could drop. Vital Farms is not immune. Nvidia is not immune. Palantir is not immune. SoFi, any of the companies you love, they're not immune from the market sentiment dictating where that stock price goes in the short term. As we know, long term, it's all about fundamentals, it's all about earnings growth, etc. But in the short term, sentiment can drive stock price for sure. So make sure you're buying over a few months span to take advantage of any dips that we might get. Last thing I want to look at is their preliminary 2025 outlook. I assume that they're really going to dive into their 2025 outlook whenever they report their Q4 numbers. Any good company out there talks about the next year outlook whenever they report their last quarter of their fiscal year. But we got a little bit of a preview a few days ago, so check it out. Vital Farms is on track to deliver strong growth in 2025 with key investments in resilient supply chain and farm network expansion. Vital Farms announced today that it is well positioned to continue delivering strong growth with critical investments in the company's robust and resilient supply chain. The company will soon begin installation of new production equipment at Egg Central Station, Vital Farms' award-winning egg washing and packing facility in Missouri. Additionally, the company has passed another major milestone within its farm network, now eclipsing 425 family farms versus 300 at the end of 2023. So that's a gain of 125 farm partners. They're still experiencing strong demand and they expect that to continue in 2025. They say here Vital Farms is the leading U.S. brand in the fast-growing pasture-raised egg market by retail dollar sales. To meet the increasing demand for Vital Farms shell eggs, the company will be installing an additional best-in-class MOBA egg grading system, the primary automation technology used in washing, sorting, packing shell eggs. Once construction is complete, ECS will see a capacity increase of an estimated 30%. 30% capacity increase is substantial. Installation of the new MOBA system is expected to begin in Q1 2025 and be fully operational by Q4 of 2025, meaning by the end of 2025, they're going to have a 30% capacity increase. And then they took the opportunity to remind us that last year they announced plans for a second world-class egg washing and packing facility in Indiana. The new facility is designed to generate more than $350 million in additional revenue capacity for the brand once it's fully operational in 2027. And that 2027 number is really important because one of their long-term financial goals is by 2027, they're a $1 billion revenue company. They haven't reported their end of year 2024 numbers, but I think that number is going to be well over $600 million. So they're going to have about a $400 million increase between 2025, 2026, and 2027. That is substantial. What we saw earlier with their revenue growth rates being about 25%, but the expected EPS growth rate to be 212%. If you know anything about long-term stock picking, stocks are going to follow earnings growth over the long term. If we have crazy earnings growth over the long term, we're going to have crazy share price growth over the long term. So what I see whenever I think about a $400 million increase in revenue, all the way up to $1 billion in revenue, which by the way, I think they're going to blow that number out of the water. I think they'll hit $1 billion of revenue sometime in 2026, about a year early. But what I see when I hear that is I think about that 200% EPS growth. No, they're not going to be able to keep the EPS growth at 200%, but let's say they keep it at double what their revenue growth rate is. Let's say their revenue growth rate over the next few years drops naturally down to like 20 or 22%. If they still have EPS growth of 40 to 44%, the stock is going to get so much respect from the market because the profitability is going to explode over that time. And if profitability explodes, share price explodes. So this is why I think Vital Farms is one of the best small cap stocks out there for long-term growth investors. If you're looking for a stock that you can hold for the next 3 to 5 to 7 years and get amazing gains because you can sleep well at night knowing it's a very stable business model, extremely simple business model, no debt on the balance sheet, so there's no risk of bankruptcy whatsoever at all, beastly management team that's going to grow revenue like crazy and grow earnings way more than that revenue and make the company more and more efficient over time, this is the stock for you. Let me know in the comment section if you've ever heard of this company before, if you already own the stock, if it's on your watch list, if you're absolutely not going to buy the stock. Let me know what your reasons are for buying the stock, not buying the stock, holding the stock. I want to hear about it. I appreciate you being here in a major way. Check out the link in the description and the pinned comment down there for the Patreon. The first place I posted about Vital Farm stock was, of course, on my Patreon page. So you would have been getting notifications when the stock was somewhere around $12 to $14 inside the Patreon if you were a member in there. We'd love to have you join the other 70 or so members that we've got in the Patreon. I appreciate you being here in a major way. Thank you so much. Have an amazing day.